Alright, welcome. So in this video, just want to talk about a topic within self-improvement that I've been thinking a lot about these last couple days. It's it's about 11:30 in the morning, and I'm just transitioning, so I'm about to go do some recording at the office, and so I thought I'd stop during the drive and just make a quick raw thoughts video. I believe this is episode 5. I'm gonna have to go and check my last one to figure out what I'm gonna title this one. I have no idea which one this really is. It's 4 or 5, whatever. Not too important. Like I said, I was kind of just gonna make these at random, based on if I have things to talk about. So like, you know, it doesn't really matter the number. It's just how I'm gonna keep track of this series. But yeah, so this video is going to be about identity, right? This video is going to cover the idea, and not just the idea, but the practical aspects of identity change within a self-improvement journey or within goal setting and achievement. So when you set a goal, that means you are determining a point in the future, or determining a point of success, right? So an amount of money, or an amount of skill, or being recognized for a certain skill, or recognized in a certain way for a certain skill, right? Whatever the actual goal may be, you are setting a point which is typically beyond where you currently are, right? So that's a complicated way of saying when you set a goal, that means you don't already have it, right? That means you aren't already there. And what that means is the identity you currently operate under does not work for the goal you're trying to set. Because if the identity matched the goal that you had, you would already be living that experience. And so therefore it wouldn't be a goal, right? Let's say my goal is to make 50K a month, but my identity is not just I say I am this person, but my identity actually reflects this person, my actions, my thoughts, my emotional state, my feelings, right? And the things I say and the things I do, right? If all of these things align with making 50K a month, then it is very unlikely that I am not already doing that, right? If I'm taking all of the right actions, if I have all of the right thoughts and none of the wrong ones, right? Same with actions, none of the wrong actions. And same with your emotional state. You're always maintaining a heightened emotional state. It is very unlikely that you won't achieve the goal that you set out for, right? So if my goal is 50K a month, but I'm already the person who makes 50K a month, my goal isn't gonna be 50K a month. My goal is gonna be more like 100, right? So when you set a goal, it means that it is beyond where you're currently at, right? Your current capabilities. This isn't to say you can't get the thing. This is to say that changes need to be made in order for you to be the type of person who can achieve that goal before you even set out for the goal in the first place, right? So when you set the goal, right, when you decide and determine that this is what I want to go for, this is what I want to go after, then you have to decide what is the identity of the person who would already have this goal, right? Who is the version of me? What does he do? What does he look like? What kind of car does he drive, right? What kind of clothes does he wear? What does his daily structure look like? What does his emotional and mental state look like, right? And start to break this person down into character traits, not just this glorified vision of who you could be, right? This fantasy. Take that fantasy, this dream, right? Dreams without a plan, or goals without a plan, are just dreams, right? So take this dream that you have, right? This vision, this fantasy that is just right now, it's up in the air, right? But it exists in your mind. Take it and break it down into tangible character traits, right? Things that you can actually go and apply and work towards, right? Take the big goal and then identify who would be living that experience, right? Not just who would have the money, right? But who would be living the experience that allows you to create and then recreate that goal scenario, right? So one of my goals is 10K a month, right? But I don't want to just make 10K once and call it quits and forget about it, right? I want to become the type of person who can repeatedly make 10K a month. Does that make sense? It isn't it isn't about achieving the goal so you can go back to the person you were. It's about setting the goal to be the direction you move towards, but what you're actually working on is the person you're becoming, not the material gain that you're going to get from achieving that goal, right? The material gain is just a measurement, right? The money itself is just a measurement for how much you've been able to progress towards that vision you have, right? And so it becomes very, very apparent that when you want to change something about your life, when you have a goal, or when you want to go through some type of transformation, it has to start with the identity. It has to start with you starting to identify with the type of person who would achieve that goal, and start to remove all of the aspects of yourself that don't align with that new identity, right? You have to start to cut out and break down the old self in order to replace it with the new self, right? Who you want to become. The price for who you want to become is who you are now, right? So what it will cost for you to go where you want to go is where you are right now, is being willing to sacrifice who you are and what comforts you hold on to right now, right? But with that sacrifice, you are able to gain this new state, become this new person, live this new reality, right? And so the hard part of this process is the transition period. The hard part of this process is having to kill the old self while waiting for the full transformation to set in becoming the new self, right? It can feel very empty. You can feel very, almost like you're in a void, right? I feel like I've been in this state recently for a few months now, just like in this weird void. But the thing that has kept me grounded is remembering the identity of who I'm becoming. And then it's easy for me to snap out of that weird state and just like get right back into a new flow state. Snowboarding season was great for this, right? Throughout the entirety of snowboarding season, I felt lost. I felt, everything was out of my control. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just trying to scrape by and like get on snow as much as I could, even though my fitness was awful. I felt like shit every day. My energy was nowhere to be found. But I pushed through because I knew who I was becoming would be a person who doesn't have to suffer with this anymore, right? But should I decide that this means it's all too hard and fall off, I'll never be able to come back to this level of fitness that I'm at right now, right? So I'm speaking from the other side of this, right? My fitness was awful. It was terrible. But I pushed through because I knew who I wanted to become. And by identifying with that in such a strong way that it caused almost like an internal state of pain when I realized that there were things stopping me from being that person, right? The realization or the ability to see that I wasn't at 100% of my capacity, or that my fitness was off, as like someone who is obsessed with fitness and has been this way most of his life, right? That because of my identity and the fact that I identify with it so deeply, that caused a level of pain that forced me to, as soon as the season ended, I threw away everything else, right? And I just locked in on a new monk mode, right? Fitness wasn't the only thing, but fitness was the main thing. And I really locked in on my fitness and my diet. And I'll say I've come a long way in just a month and a half, month and like 3 weeks. But yeah, we'll say a month and a half. It's been about 6 weeks. So in just 6 weeks, I've completely transformed my fitness, right? The growth has been drastic, right? In just a short period of time. And that's because of this shift in identity, but also the ability to follow through on that identity, right? If I just identified as an athlete, but I didn't force myself to push through the discomfort of being tired all the time and snowboard anyways, I probably wouldn't have gotten back into my fitness at the end of the season, really, because I wouldn't have been reinforcing that identity. And so that's the next thing. You have to create the identity and you have to hold it true, but you also have to follow through on it, right? You have to reinforce that identity through actions, right? You have to actually go and do the things that person would do in order to believe that you're that person. But back to my example with this previous season, because my identity aligned with being an athlete, I was able to push through what discomforts I had and what doubts I did have, because I knew who I was at the end of the day, right? So it was, I stopped asking myself, well, what do I feel like doing? What can I do? How do I feel, right? I stopped talking about that in any capacity. And the only question I ask myself now when deciding what to do is, who am I, right? Always instant, the first thing I ask is always, who am I, right? When I feel lost, when I feel like I'm drifting, when I'm stuck on what to do next or where to go, who am I, right? Who am I? What place am I making this decision from? You know, am I a drug addict? Am I lazy? Am I, am I a leech? Like, do I have no desire to output any effort for what I actually want in return, right? Do I just want everything for me and not have to put out any effort, right? That's what I would define as lazy. Do I want to just sit around and do drugs all day, or do I have goals and ambitions, and do I want to achieve something in the world, right? Are my goals selfish, or are they both self-supporting and also beneficial to somebody else, right? So it's like, am I doing this for myself, or am I doing this for somebody else? So the identity that I'm trying to portray is, am I someone who is selfish? Am I someone who is lazy? Am I someone who is, addicted to drugs and okay with putting off what's important? Or am I an entrepreneur? Am I an athlete? Am I someone who just wants to give value to the world because he believes he's so great and able to make so much progress in the things he's doing, and therefore wants to share the lessons that he learns in doing so, and wants to share the lessons that help him to make this progress, right? Who am I, right? What type of person am I, right? Am I a great entrepreneur? Am I a great athlete? And am I somebody who likes to give to other people and who likes to support others through the value that I have by giving that value away for completely free, and giving a little bit more of it away for some money, right? Am I that person? Do I identify with that person, or do I identify with this person, right? Based on the person I am, whoever I identify with, these are different, completely different thinking patterns. These are different perspectives of the same situation, right? So who you actually are will determine what state you're able to make decisions from. So that's why whenever I'm making a decision about my day, I ask, who am I, right? Who am I again? Who am I trying to become? Not even who am I trying to become, but who am I at my core? And what is the version of me that I'm actually trying to bring out, right? Who am I? Well, I'm an entrepreneur. All right. So what does an entrepreneur do right now, first thing in the morning after waking up? Does he go and he smokes weed, or does he go and he scrolls on his phone on TikTok, right? Or does he go and he makes a video, even though he feels like complete shit and is wicked tired and has no energy? Well, I can't lie. I have a lot of energy today, but a lot of times I don't, right? Which version are you, right? So the entrepreneur, yeah, he's gonna make the video anyways, right? And so that's the decision you make. I just walked you through my thinking process this morning, funny enough, right? Not with like the smoking weed alternative, but just I felt like shit, right? I had no energy and I knew I needed to make a video. So I was like, well, who am I, right? Who am I? Stop asking myself how I feel and what I feel like doing. Who am I and what would they do? And just do that, and just keep going with that, right? Because if you do what you want to do right now, the version of you wanting the thing is not the version of you who would go and achieve the goal you have, right? It's very rare that the person you are right now, void of motivation, genuinely wants to go and sit down and do the work. Otherwise, you would be doing it, right? If this was the truth, right? If you actually preferred to be doing the work and you were actually that person who would achieve your goal, you wouldn't be watching this video, you'd be working, right? Does that make sense? So you need to change and alter the identity, and then you have to go about the actual process. So change the identity first, change the internal state, and then change the process by taking actions, right? And then go about the process, by taking actions, right? So the same way manifestation does not work without action, action does not work when void of a clear vision and a clear identity, right? So if all you're doing is taking action, but you're not changing your identity to match the person you're trying to become, that action will just go nowhere, right? You will not be able to make significant progress if all you're doing is taking action while identifying in your mind with a different version of yourself, right? However, I guarantee this is a rare case, somebody can comment and let me know if I'm wrong, but there is very rarely a case where when you're identified with a negative or a lower version of yourself, that you're going to take all and only the actions that the higher version of you would be doing, right? If you were living in full alignment with that version of yourself, with those actions, a 100% alignment with an actions, your identity would shift and change, right? So that's the only nuance to it. If by any chance you are able to take 100% of the actions you need to be taking, and 0% of the actions you shouldn't be taking, then yes, your identity will change by extension. But very rarely are you identified with being a drug addict and able to train consistently, eat all of the right food, and not do the drugs, right? That's very, very rare. It is, however, pretty common for someone who's identified with being a drug addict to be able to train, eat good, and do their drug, right? So it's like you can do the actions, but there's also actions you need to not be doing. And there's an identity that you need to hold and match, all right? So that identity, there are things that person does not do, right? An entrepreneur does not smoke weed during the day, or at all, to be fair. I know some entrepreneurs who smoke briefly, but like very rarely will you find an actual entrepreneur who smokes weed. Plenty of them drink, but it's a similar idea to where they don't identify with the drinking, they identify with the business, and they sometimes do the drinking, right? But regardless, we're not going to get into whether alcohol is good or not, but I'm just saying I don't believe alcohol is any good. So I believe that if you are an entrepreneur, you should not be drinking, you should not be pursuing any type of pleasure like that. But whatever, these are my beliefs, and some rich guy will probably call me broke and yell at me for saying that. But the whole point is, if you are identified as an entrepreneur, you're not going to be doing the things that take away from that. Same thing with an athlete. You will probably not find an athlete drinking or smoking before a game. At least an athlete who takes it seriously, right? It's very rare that you'll find an athlete smoking before games. Because I did know a lot of athletes who would smoke all day, every day. The locker room was always the spot to smoke up right before a game, right before a practice. But I always noticed the ones who took their sport seriously, it's not that they didn't do the things. I knew one friend of mine in particular who works very, very hard. He's absolutely one of the greatest athletes I know. And he used to smoke with us, right? He used to drink with us on occasion. He would hit people's vapes or whatever, like the nicotine vapes. But I noticed very, very quickly, as soon as we all started to enter that world, he started to shy away from it, right? So he did do the drinking, he did try the drugs, but he never had a deep interest in them, right? He only ever had an interest in pursuing what he was doing, right? So he understood that these things would hinder his health and his growth, and so therefore naturally he would stay away from them, right? And so very quickly he went from, as we all started to get into this stuff, we're young, we're like 13, 14 years old, and like I have friends starting to drink, I have friends who buy vapes every week, and like this is starting to be the cool thing, right? And I noticed he initially tried it and then naturally stayed away from it from that point forward, right? he naturally drifted away from those things because they were hindering his progress as an athlete. They were hindering his growth. And I mean, I never had a conversation with him about this and asked him specifically, oh yeah, is that why you didn't end up vaping? But more likely than not, he just had a natural inclination not to do it, or just naturally found he didn't enjoy it or like it as much because it didn't match or align with the identity, right? It didn't match with who he was and who he identified with, right? And so naturally he stayed away from that stuff. And guess what? He's still doing great. He's still killing it, right? And I love to see it, because that was one of my closest friends growing up too. So it's good to see that he made it out the other side, right? He didn't end up getting sucked into that world. He stayed true to who he genuinely was, and was able to follow through. And he's now pursuing, I don't know what sport he's doing, but he's in college for sports right now. And that's great. Like I love to see that for him, because I know he works for it. I know he absolutely has the skill and the talent for it. And he stuck true to being disciplined enough to actually follow through on that goal. Whereas I had other friends who were maybe more gifted athletically. I don't want to say 100%, but possibly more gifted athletically, but they fell down this road and they fell down this path. And so they naturally stopped being as interested in their sports, stopped working so hard on their sports, because now their identity started to match with the drugs more than their sport, right? And so they went from being more athletes to being more stoners and partying and stuff like that, right? And again, these are gifted athletes, but they didn't identify enough with it to stay true to it, right? And so I can give many examples like this, but the whole point, the gist, is that the identity that you hold determines the path that you take, right? Because decision making is based on not just your ability to analyze a situation and then move one way or the other dependent on that situation. It is also reflective of your perspective of that situation. So the way you look at that situation, the identity of someone who is to be rich, or who is rich, or who is an entrepreneur, the identity of that person and the perspective of that person is of abundance, and is of not wanting to waste the gift that we have, right? That's what I at least have as a driving factor for why I want to be an entrepreneur, is because I don't want to waste the resources that I have here on this earth. I want to concentrate them and synthesize them into a creation of my own that is reflective of what I want to truly give and leave to this world when I die, right? So with that, it does not make sense for me to go and waste my time, waste my energy, waste my attention on things that won't yield that return. Whereas the perspective of someone who's addicted to drugs sees it a similar way, but it's reversed, right? Because their important thing is the drug. They don't want to waste their time doing something that would be boring, right? They don't want to waste their time doing something that they wouldn't actually get the benefits of until the future, right? That's their perspective, because their perspective is based on instant gratification and immediate pleasure. So dependent on your identity, that will determine what types of things you see in the exact same situation, right? Me and somebody watching this video who's like completely in the dumps, like completely gone and just not with us anymore, not in this world anymore, just like we call them bots now, right? NPCs. Someone who is genuinely in that hole of unconsciousness cannot see the same thing the same way I would, right? So let me give a specific example here, because I am talking about something specific. Somebody in that state will not see YouTube the same way that I do, right? What I see in YouTube is an opportunity, potential abundance, right? I see the ability to turn your passion into a career. I see financial and location freedom, time freedom. I see the ability to create a business not through taking from other people, but through connecting with other people and giving value to other people, right? That's what I see. Whereas somebody in this situation might see the exact same thing, YouTube, but might see it completely differently. Yeah, YouTube is like some entertainment every once in a while. Oh, all these YouTubers are getting money for doing nothing, and you know, they're all lucky. And they all like, they're all these kids that don't want to work anymore. Oh, kids don't like to work these days, and just the idea that you can look at the same situation very, very differently, right? Somebody who's in a negative state would look at YouTube as like, oh yeah, look at all these kids doing like half the amount of work that I do, but they're making, my yearly salary every month. Well, yeah, you could be upset about it, or you could hop on the train. It's like, you don't have to have a perspective that causes you to be stuck where you are, but some people choose to, because that's where they identify. They identify with, this is the only way to make money, this is the only way to live life. And then they might see somebody else doing it and doing something else, and they're like, oh, no, that's luck. Yeah, that's luck. I don't know how they did that. No, us, everybody else is just over here. Meanwhile, the reality is that I created this and you created that, right? You identify with the person who lives in that reality. I identify with the person who lives in this reality. And so naturally, neither of us are necessarily luckier than the other. Each of us have the exact same amount of power in the situation, right? Each of us have the ability to choose what we do and who we become. It's just that I chose one route and you chose another. It isn't luck. It's just the ability to resist the unconscious programming and reprogram yourself to align with who you truly want to be. I believe that's all I have to talk about. If I have anything to add on, I'll throw in an edit at the end of this video, or I'll edit it in at the end of this video. But yeah, I just thought, because I've been thinking a lot about this, the identity shift is definitely has to be the most important process in actually achieving a goal or making a big change in your life, because that identity, who you become, will determine what things you're actually able to experience. And so creating that identity is going to make everything else fall into line so much easier. So that's all I have for you guys in this video. If you guys want to go down to my Instagram, that first link in the description. I'm not having you guys book direct calls anymore. I'm switching over from the one-on-one coaching. I'm still gonna have a coaching program, so if you guys want the one-on-one work, you can still do it, but I'm switching everything over to the new product that I'm about to release. So that's really exciting for me. I can't wait to drop this for you guys. I think this is gonna be huge. But I am essentially transitioning. So if you guys want to go and you're still interested in the coaching, you can go down to my Instagram and just send me a DM, and we'll discuss what you're looking for in the program. And then if I think you're a good fit, we'll book a call and we'll schedule it through Instagram DMs. And if you guys are interested in the pre-launch for the product, Academy of Self-Mastery, you guys can go down and same link, just go to my Instagram and just send me a DM, say, hey, I want early access to the program, and I'll be like, hey, I got you. And I'll take note of you, and once I'm ready to launch, I'll go back through all those DMs and I'll give you guys the first link, right? You'll have the first link to be the first to buy into the program, which will be awesome. And I am gonna do it at a discounted price for those of you who buy in early. So if you want to buy in early, you'll get I think it'll be like $25 less a month. I'm not making this super expensive at all. So for you guys, early launch or pre-launch, you guys will have it at $50 a month, which is pretty dope. For the amount of value I'm putting into this product, is pretty dope, I'd say. But yeah, so if you guys are interested in either of those things, you can just go down to my Instagram, send me a DM. And one more quick little side piece, a little side tangent. I am going to be, excuse me. I am going to be creating a few courses for YouTube. So I have my normal style videos, and I'm going to be breaking down some of the courses that I'm developing for this program into long form content for YouTube. And I'll be releasing that as partially an advertisement for the program, but also to get some of this value out to you guys for free as well. And so if you guys are looking forward to that, you can go ahead and look forward to that, and hopefully that'll be sick. Hopefully that'll be good for you. And now with what I've been thinking about recently, I think I might create a video, write out a whole video on just identity and how to change your identity. So that'll be something you guys can look forward to if this video helped a lot. But yeah, if this video helped and you want more of this, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button down below. And if you want to work with me directly, you can go ahead and send me a DM on Instagram. But other than that, I'm out of here. Peace.